Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So I haven't really done any videos for Vlogmas. I believe it was 8 and 9. Honestly, I was really busy with my work. I couldn't even do a video during my lunch, so honestly I had no time. And by the time my work was over, I was so exhausted because you're sitting there working on a computer all day. Your eyes get strained out and red and tired. So yeah. And then on top of that, I just bought the Villains Monopoly, and we spent like 3 hours each night playing. So yeah, that's my excuse, honestly. So for today, I decided that I'm gonna go ahead and I was gonna go in depth in one of these games, but then I thought, you know what, why don't I mention all of them, and if you guys want an in-depth video on each one, then I'll go ahead and do that. But for today, I'm gonna be doing 13 paranormal games you wish you hadn't played. Before I get started, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and if you're already subscribed, thank you. Welcome back. Do not pay attention to my hair because I quickly did it and my bangs suck. Never cut your bangs. And yeah. Okay, so the first one is the elevator game. I already did a video on that, so I'll go ahead and link that in the description. But pretty much the elevator game takes you to another world. Elevators do more than take you to the lobby to the penthouse. If you follow the instructions to the elevator game, you'll enter the lift in the regular world and exit an entirely different place. This game requires a building with at least 10 stories and an elevator that can be accessed without being interrupted by other people. Once in the elevator, you'll press the buttons to visit the floors in particular order without leaving the elevator. The game goes very wrong if the player faints during it, as they will wake up at home or a version of it. If a young woman enters the elevator on the 5th floor and the player looks at or speaks to her, she may kidnap the player. When attempting to return to the original world, a player must use the same elevator that took them to the alternate world, a feat harder than it seems. So like I said, I already did a video on the elevator game. If you wanted to check it out, it'll be on the comments below. And I've also done experiences of other people playing the elevator game. I'll also link that video below. But if you're interested in an elevator game part 2, actually I think it'll be part 3 now, go ahead and comment below. So the second paranormal game is the Three Kings game. It takes you to the shadow side to get answers. So the gist of the setup for Three Kings involves a dark room turned into a throne room with 3 chairs, 2 mirrors, a fan, a candle, a bucket of water, a mug, a charged cell phone, and several fail-safe contingencies. The game itself has many very specific time frames and red flags the player should adhere to, including evacuating the house if needed. Should you succeed at the game, you may get to the shadow side, a mental plane where one might find answers to problems or bursts of inspiration. If one of the red flags occurs, such as the phone not charging or a door being closed when it was left open, or a fan being off when it was left on, the player and any loved one in the house must depart for a hotel and not return until 6 a.m. A candle lit for the game cannot go out, or the game will be over. A loved one cannot touch the player but must attempt to stop the game at precisely 4:34 a.m. The player cannot look into the mirrors or anywhere other than straight ahead. They cannot stop the game early once the candle is lit, as it's rude to leave the other kings after asking them questions. Now, I haven't really heard about that one, but a few of these games are more like rituals, so I kind of feel like that's why they're paranormal, because you're actually performing a ritual and not playing a game. Daruma-san summons a woman's spirit for hide and seek. After initiating a ritual that includes the player washing their hair in the bath with their eyes closed to the spirit of a Japanese woman who died by a rusty faucet to the eye, Daruma-san, hope I'm saying that right, begins when the player wakes the next day. The next day will be spent with Daruma-san following the player and attempting to catch them, which is bad. If the player believes Daruma-san is too close for comfort, they can yell "Tomare" to give themselves time to run. Before midnight on the day of the game, the player has to look at the spirit over their right shoulder, yell "Kita," and swing their arm in a downward cutting motion. If this doesn't happen, the spirit can enter the player's dream. If the player attempts to play the game again, Daruma-san will start right behind them. Yeah, no, that doesn't even sound like hide and seek or a game. I think I've mentioned this next one before on another video. It's called One Man Hide and Seek Summons a Spirit into a Doll's Body. One Man Hide and Seek involves the player shuffling a doll with rice and their own fingernail clippings before sewing it shut and wrapping it with crimson thread, which is like red thread practically. After leaving the toy in a tub of water and declaring themselves it, the player turns off the house lights and turns on a television in their hiding place. After counting to 10, the player returns to the doll, announces they've found it, stabs the toy, and declares the doll is now it. The player returns to their hiding place before searching for the doll. Once the doll is found, the player must ingest, but not swallow, salt water. Spit it on the doll and say "I win" 3 times. The ritual stops and the toy is dried, burned, and thrown out. If the player doesn't end the game after 2 hours, fails to remain quiet, or turns on the lights, they will be in danger from spirits in their home. And yeah, that one, literally you're summoning a spirit, so not a game. The Hooded Man Ritual offers a cab ride to new places. I'm not sure if I've mentioned this one before. I think I have. I'm not even sure. Before attempting to call for the Hooded Man and his cab, the player should cleanse the area where they plan to perform the ritual. A rotary or touch-tone landline phone is used to call a specific number, where the player recites the requisite words and summons a black taxi cab with the Hooded Man behind the wheel. The player enters the cab's back seat, locks the door, goes to sleep, and follows a very specific rules regarding what to do based on when they wake. After ending the ritual, another phone call is made before cleansing begins. If the player speaks to another passenger, tries to get out of the cab without following the rules, or waits too long to end the ritual, the consequences can be life-threatening. No one knows what happens if the player stays in the cab until the Hooded Man reaches the end of his route, but it can't be good. I'd rather play the elevator game than get in a cab with a Hooded Man. Next, it's capture spirits on film in the picture game. This game requires at least 2 players, but many more may join if desired. Basically, the group of people create a rope circle and place a glass filled with an alcoholic beverage in the center of it, never stepping inside the rope circle. The participants sit around the circle, each with their own mirror, and take part in some ritualistic words and actions before photographing the spirits they've summoned. Going around the circle, each individual player will say, "I caught you." Snap a picture using a camera with a flash and then pass it to the next player. This happens 3 times before the ritual is closed and the spirits are dismissed. If any player begins to cry or says they feel nauseated, skip them during the picture taking portion of the ritual. If anyone during the ritual starts acting strangely or expresses fear, end the game immediately. If they do take a photo, end the ritual immediately and destroy the camera without looking at the picture they took. Should the ritual go well, the players then say it's time to go home. Flip their mirrors over, cut the rope, and pour the water of liquid outside on dirt. Then players check their cameras to see the subjects they've captured. That does not even sound fun at all. Pretty much you're doing a ritual to catch spirits. It doesn't sound great at all. The next one is summon the mysterious channel infinity to show you the meaning of life. Channel infinity can be reached by one player using an analog television, a remote control, and mirrors. After setting up the TV, the player leaves it for about 3 hours, collects an item they hold dear, a key, a weapon, a pickaxe, or a sledgehammer, a favorite book, a cell phone, and a loved one to watch their back. Once the ritual is performed correctly, the player will be asked 3 to 26 questions to determine if they are shown their favorite television show with all the characters horrifically murdered, or their least favorite person or thing. The player can be pulled into a vortex to another dimension, making the pickaxe, key, and cell phone useful. Channel Infinity will then allow the player to choose one show from the guide to watch. The meaning of life is one example. The player can never share the knowledge gained from Channel Infinity and can only access it 4 times. That one's weird too. So far, elevator up here. Alright, so the next is the Stalking game. It makes you dream of your passing participant. So the Stalking game must be played only when the participant suddenly feels a strong urge to do so, with no planning ahead of time. The player first walks to a crossroads, reaches into their pockets, and holds an item from them in their right hand, or spits in their hand if they have empty pockets. Spins in a direction determined by the color of the first bird they see, and then follows the first stranger they see. If the player follows the person until they lose sight of them, they must go home and remain in bed until they sleep. If the stranger being stalked is lost because they accessed a home, the player should go to bed at their normal time. If the stranger is lost because they entered a building that isn't a house, the player stays up for 24 hours before finally sleeping. The item the player held the entire time they stalked the stranger is placed under their pillow, or wiped in the case of spit. The player sleeps until they dream about their passing, a bloody woman with no eyes, spirits with advice, an angel or a demon. Regardless of what happens, a player must remain in bed until they dream. You're gonna dream no matter what. Just saying. Meet a celestial anchorite. Ask some questions. Forfeit your life. Celestial anchorites walk undetected among humanity, transcribing its existence. If the player tracks down an anchorite, hopefully I'm saying this right, The lucky player may ask one question of any kind and receive an answer. Those who wish to speak with Celestial Anchorite have to be pure of body and mind, well dressed, and armed with a gift. They must also avoid alcohol, drugs, and sex for 48 hours before meeting the divine entity. After tracking the Celestial Anchorite to a city and building, knocking on doors and posing a question and receiving an appropriate answer, the player will be invited into its home. When it's time to leave, the entity will entice the player to stay, but must be refused. If the player takes any gifts or appears to accept the request to remain with the entity, they will be trapped in the building for the rest of their life and afterlife. So far, stalking a stranger and looking for an entity and stalking them too. Elevator games still appear. Okay, here's the next game on the list, which I don't even know why this one is on the list. It doesn't even sound like a game. Summon a childlike entity and ask it questions with Charlotte's Web. Okay, so the game is Charlotte's Web. In Charlotte's Web, two players enter a dark room with flashlights, one mirror, two chairs, a table, and a toy to offer the spirit of Charlotte. The players sit in the chairs placed in front of the table, which holds the toy offering. The mirror is set up in front of the players and the flashlights provide light. The players say in unison, "We want to play Charlotte's Web," and then remain calm while they wait. Charlotte will appear in the mirror and take the toy if she likes it. If she doesn't like the toy, she will throw a tantrum and the game must end immediately. If players bring candles, Charlotte may attack, as she saw her mother burned at the stake. If the players look away from the mirror, they are endangering themselves. If all goes well, players can ask questions of Charlotte before telling her goodbye and ending the game. This one sounds like the Ouija board. Okay, I don't know about that one. I haven't heard of Charlotte's Web, so that's a new one to me. The next one is called Time Altarum. It invites ghosts to party at your house. In a dark room with candles, paper, and a mirror, a player cuts their thumb open to begin this ritual for summoning spirits. No, you just lost me at cutting and putting blood to summon spirits. The mirror goes on a wall, the blood goes on the paper, and a lit candle goes on the bloody paper. The player says, "I wish to speak with the other side. You are allowed to come into my home in my event." 3 times, blows out the candles, lights another candle, closes their eyes and says, "Thanks for coming to the event. I hope we have a pleasant get-together. Welcome." If the candles don't light, the player must leave the room immediately and not return until the next day. If the players feel a presence behind them or hear whispering, the ritual has worked and the spirits are in their home. Do not look at the spirits even if they touch you. I'm getting creeped out just by reading this. If the ritual doesn't work and the candle goes out, the player must chant, "The event is over. You shall all go home and never return," with your eyes closed before leaving the room until morning. Alright, number 12 is the staircase ritual. It will let you know if your home is haunted. Walking from the bottom step into their home to the top, the player will recite specific words while placing corresponding objects. For example, putting a strand of their hair on the 12th step and saying, "Here is the essence extracted from me." Each stair is a curse that supernatural elements in the house cannot pass to access the second floor of the house, so it can be performed backward if the player sleeps on the first floor or in the hallway in the absence of any stairs. The second part of the ritual has to begin at the exact time the first part ended and requires 1 hour per step, the destruction of a few items, and fresh blood. Once the player reaches the top step, they are finally able to turn and use their weapon on whatever appears before them. If the ritual items are disturbed while the player sleeps, every piece must be encircled with salt overnight and then destroyed. Banishing the spirits to a specific part of the house anchors them, and using the stairs too much before completing the game weakens the curses placed there. Should the object not be disturbed, then begins a many hours long ritual that will eventually banish the spirits from your home. This is way too many summoning spirits. Okay, and last but not least, the Librarian Ritual. It's a blood contract for knowledge. The ritual must be performed between midnight and 4 a.m. and works best in a library. There can be more than one player, but the participants must never speak to each other again after the ritual is done. The book, quill, and table used in it must be burned after because they become cursed in the process. The librarian appears after the player sign their name in blood on a page of a book and then ask, "What is the most powerful weapon?" The answer, knowledge. Then they stab the book with a knife. The players will all be given elevated mental prowess, but they will be forever followed by the librarian. You will cast 2 shadows, and the librarian will watch you as you sleep and likely drive you to insanity. So who wants to play with the librarian? Okay, those were weird. I still think the elevator game is up here. All the rest were a little bit. Alright guys, so this completes Vlogmas 10, I believe now. I don't even know, I can't even keep track. If you like this video, don't forget to like the video, and if you have any comments regarding any of these games, comment anything below, and don't forget to subscribe if you're brand new, and I'll see you next time. Bye.